Happy Wednesday. Now, you're used to me coming out here and just reading poetry to you. Well, have I got a treat for you? I'm not just bringing poetry, I'm bringing a poet. By my side is my friend of the heart, Nola Perez. We go back quite a ways together. Um, and I've been very pleased to be representing her on a lot of book launches. In fact, I think we've done,
I don't think you've missed a single one.
well, we've done at least five last books ever, right?
Yes.
Well, this is the next last book ever, and I am planning on there being many, many more.
Well,
Uh,
we'll see.
right, we'll see.
As long as the muse keeps coming around.
Well, the muse is her constant companion. As
Yeah.
whatever she does in life, the muse is kind of like right back there over her shoulder,
Yeah.
pushing her
Oh,
on.
she's a tyrant.
She is. That's why I'm glad I read and appreciate. I don't have to create. Um,
You are a very creative person in all
oh,
respects,
I
my
try.
dear.
We're going to go through this book, the title of which is Nothing Left Unsaid. Now, and it's new and archived poems. A question.
Sure.
Where did that title come from?
Well, that title has to do with if I had not said important things to some of the people that are in this book, I'm saying it now. And they know because I have it on authority that they hear, Nola, they hear. So they so that is a way of saying everything I might not have said. Well, I say a lot. You know I'm noisy. I say a lot, but those are confessional things to family and friends that might not have been said before. They're in this book for them to honor them.
Well, one of the things I mentioned to Nola just recently in the conversation was that this is probably the most personal, intimate book that she's done because there are these messages to people who are here and to people who were cherished but are no longer here.
True.
I want to read something to you on the back of the book, and I want to show you this picture first. I'm addicted to architecture, and also, when you look at that staircase, that is incredible. It's almost like going in the convoluted interior of a shell. And I'm going to read to you what Jim Shupman, PhD, uh, says. And he is described as a sometime poet, sometime clergyman, and full time associate professor of ethics, religious studies, and humanities at Embry Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach, where he is pleased to be a friend and colleague of one of Nola's sons, Michael,
Who's also a poet.
who is also a poet of extreme note. And Jim says, this remarkable volume of poems by Nola Perez, Nothing Left Unsaid, has much in common with stumbling upon a beautiful spider web in the woods at sunrise or sunset. The sun's rays highlight both the silver beauty and the complexity of this home in the sky. The tender softness of these verses is deceiving, as like such a web. They carry the tensile strength of steel, as well as the healing properties of a poultice. It is the beauty of art that saves us bleeding out from our wounds. It is a pleasure to be caught up in this web of words. Reading Nola's poetry is both a strengthening and a healing experience, a blessing and a benediction for everyone who comes upon this work at either the sunrise or the sunset. of their days.
And he says he's not a poet. You know, how poetic is that?
That's wonderful.
It is. It is.
And by the way, you know, I keep encouraging you to feel everything. This book has that same kind of tactile softness of suede, but if you not only feel it, but you look at it. I mentioned something, a staircase. It was mysterious. It's going up, or you could be going down it. There's a ghostly figure there who's ascending or descending. But looking at the cover of the book, there's somebody hidden behind a door. And what do I see beyond that open, dark door? The railing of a staircase. Could it be? So can you see we've had a little visual poetry before we've even opened the book? Now, for those of you who don't know Nola, Nola, tell us a little bit about your background in Fernandina here on Amelia Island.
My background? Well, I'm a native here, one of the few endangered species, and I lived at first on 6th Street, and in a house that my grandmother bought. It was a very poor time for people, and my father said to my grandmother, "Buy this house, and I'll build you a little apartment on the back, and we can all move in." Because he was planning to build the beach house, and he did. But we lived at that house at the corner of Date and 6th for a few years, and then he built what was known as the 1735 house, not known as that anymore, but some people have bought it from Georgia, I understand, and to my dismay, they have changed the exterior of the house. It no longer but anyway, it's my house. I grew up in it, and I will take them to task about changing it. But so anyway, in about 1937, my father built that house. We were in it then, and that he was a traveling fella, but wealthy for the times. Unfortunately, that he was. And I remember a school chum saying to me one time, "Well, your father was just traveling salesman." And I said, "Oh yeah, have you seen the house he built?" And he had the whole southeast for his territory, and every time he had 6 salesmen working for him, and every time they sold something, he made money. So he worked for a company in Ohio, and so I grew up a beach girl with the ocean for my swimming pool and the beach for my sand pile. I considered it even before I was aware of what a privilege it was. You know, it was a wonderful thing because I had lived elsewhere, you know, in town, and so anyway, um, I don't know what to add to that. I went to Fernandina High School. I graduated. My father died at 52 unexpectedly when away on a business trip. He had a clot in his leg at a time where there were no blood thinners. And so he left no will. Everything was in chaos. So my stepmother raised me, eventually remarried. She moved to Caracas, Venezuela with her husband, who was an engineer for Westinghouse in South America. And so that got me to South America after I got out of high school. So I consider I really have had a magical life, which is the title of one of my books, because I've lived in Caracas, Venezuela for a year. I lived 4 years in Paris. My husband worked at the embassy in Paris. I lived in Brussels. I lived in North Miami Beach, one of the most foreign places I've ever been in my life.
Different planet.
If you didn't speak Spanish, forget it. Fortunately, I could speak a little Spanish because I was fluent when I left Caracas. I was going to teach Spanish, and I was so in love with the language. I stayed a year in Caracas. I didn't want to leave until my stepmother, who raised me, began to say, "Well, what are you going to do with your life? So I came back to Fernandina and met the man I married, and that's it.
Well, that's not totally it. There's an interesting story in how you met Andre and how that relationship evolved.
Yeah.
And I think people would enjoy hearing that.
Well, his sister, he came from Marseille, France, and his sister married Vincent Ferreira of the Ferreira family here, he played an instrument in the GI band that was during World War II, he was in the army. They played a concert in Marseille. There he met Andre's sister. They dated, they got married there. She had her first child there, and she came back on a ship for Army brides. And when she got to Fernandina, of course, there weren't many people speaking French then here. There are now, but we've gotten very urban and sophisticated. But
Oui, vous avez toute raison, madame.
oui, je sais. Tu as raison.
Ah, oui.
Anyway, anyways, she was very lonely, and she asked her husband Vincent Ferreira if he would vouch for her brother and bring him to the States, which my husband Andre, that's what he wanted. He dreamed of coming to the U.S. I dreamed of going to France. We got what we wanted through each other, and so he came. He got immediately on a Russian tanker. He came into New York Harbor, went through Ellis Island, and he got on the train and came to Fernandina. And he lived with his sister and Vincent Ferreira, and they helped him get acclimated. English wasn't that good, but he got a job working as an electrical apprentice and whatnot. And so I met him the summer I came home from Caracas. And he and my brother, Jim Baker, were very close friends. And he said, I want you to meet my sister. She's coming home from Venezuela. And that was the end of it and the beginning of it.
Well, and something else. We went on a museum tour of houses this last before Christmas. I think it was in November.
I was your guest.
Yes.
Yes.
And very interestingly, we went into a house, and I wasn't aware of this. And Nola said, "Oh, that's where our wedding reception was."
Yes, it was.
Tell us about who owned that house.
Who owned that house was Judge Herbert Burgess, the longtime Nassau County judge, and he was married to my father's sister, Murray Baker, and so while my stepmother was away in South America, that's when I was getting married and whatnot, and so my aunt took over the job. She did everything for me, and they lived in that house. And so I lived in that house for about 6 months when I came home from college to get married. And so when I walked in that house, it was like a homecoming, you know. And so.
Well, this blessed union resulted in 2 wonderful sons who it has been my privilege to meet. Why don't you tell us a little bit about them, the rest of your family here, who now are on Amelia Island?
This is true. I have 2 sons. I was trying to get my firstborn son's initials the same as his father, so I named him Anthony Stephen for Andres Main Perez. And then I had Michael Vincent, and I tell people that 10 years I stayed home with kids. I quit working. Was the happiest, most blessed time of my life, and it was raising little boys. I'm a sucker for little boys. I am. I see people with little boys in the grocery store, and I say, "Oh, you get tired of them." I'll take it.
Folks, she likes big boys too.
Yes. Well, that shall not be discussed.
Oh, okay. That's another interview.
That's X-rated.
Okay.
Purple.
Oh.
So anyway, Michael teaches at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University as a he is in the humanities department, and he also writes poetry. He's done a couple of narrative books. One on Billie Holiday. He's an enormous jazz um, fan. When he was a kid, he would be in there listening to jazz while everybody else was out playing in the yard. He's just always been absorbed in it. So he wrote this book about Billie Holiday, and then he has another book coming up that's in process, and it's narrative. And my son Anthony has worked for Yahoo in Atlanta. He now is freelance because he moved to Fernandina after 20 years in Atlanta, and he's working at the Catholic Church Saint the school there, the Academy, St. Joseph's Academy. He's working in he does things like what you're watching right now. He's very talented with uh, that kind of stuff. So anytime I have a problem with my computer, I call him, and thank God now he's here, and all he has to do is get in the car. He's on First Coast Highway, past Harris Teeter, on the right side of the road, in this gorgeous house with a front yard that runs all the way to the river. It's beautiful, and I'm so happy. To him, it's a homecoming because while I grew them up in Jacksonville, we were always at the beach, down by the fort. You know, always, always, always. So this is homecoming to to both of my boys.
Mention Sally and Elizabeth.
Oh, I have a lovely daughter-in-law. Her name is Sarah, but I like the name Sarah so much. It's so old-fashioned and beautiful. So I called her Sarah for a while, and I didn't get anywhere. It's Sally. No, it's Sally. And then I have a granddaughter, Elizabeth, who wants to be an actress. She writes very well. She's adopted, so I can brag on her all I want to, except that we have been very involved and close with each other. But she's going to school in what's the name of that school down there?
In Savannah.
Savannah School.
SCAD, thank you.
Yeah.
Connor is our backup intelligence here. We need him.
So she's going to college there now, but she's also been to college in Chicago, and she's very bright, but we're having to nurture her. She didn't want to leave Atlanta. It's very hard when you grew up and leave it some places. You always think that it's home. It's always home to you in the heart. So
well, there are pictures in this book, and this particular one, that's Sally, and there's a wonderful picture of Elizabeth, which I seem to be incapable of finding. You may have noticed that I mark a lot of things, and I just can never remember what it is I've marked. Maybe Nola has that.
Yeah, I do. Well, she came to my new apartment, and she saw all these photos. I keep my family all around me, all on the walls. And
oh, yeah.
I'll read that poem that I wrote for her. When she came in, she saw all those faces and none of hers.
And you notice the family are dog people, which is one of the reasons we get along so well. But read.
I wrote this book called Faces. She came to visit one day, and she came in, and my granddaughter looks at pictures on the white desolation of the refrigerator door. Why am I not here? She exclaims. My picture belongs more and more than theirs and theirs and theirs, she says, pointing her finger at the images. These are the faces of those still with us, ones we yet regard, not so the ones in the office gallery. I take her there, where I do have an image of her, and lo, on my desktop she reigns, basketball cradled in her hands at summer camp, smiling at home, arms embracing the family dog. She wants a tour of the gallery wall, and each face she asks, who? And each time, was I here yet? No, I answer. She came in Baby New Year, 1998, plunging into history after the world watched the Big Apple ball drop. Some of the missing hang here side by side, just as they did in life. They speak to me and I to them. Thank you, stepmother, acquired by a father spooked. by her daughter, Milena Dietrich, good looks. At each face, my granddaughter repeats, "Was I here yet?" No, she never knew my father, he who passed too soon, leaving a devastated daughter. Then there's a wedding couple with their entourage, lifetime husband, young and in his prime, sons, young and in their prime. The grandmother, surrogate mother, pressed into service in view of her daughter who left with her lover. Grandmother of the Prussian fortitude, in the mirror that never lies, knows who's fairest under the skies. I see your face, not mine. Grandmother, full of grace, I know the face, I have become you.
And it is for Elizabeth. And I love the tagline: we do not choose our faces, they choose us. Now, I've got to do a little bit of a disclaimer. I mentioned that we've done quite a few of these final Last Book Forever openings. I'm very pleased to be the person to whom Nola dedicated this particular volume. We have been down life's path quite a few times. I remember years ago, she and I went to Colquitt. I was determined. I had to see Swamp Gravy.
Yeah.
A wonderful
That's
show.
Georgia, Colquitt, Georgia.
Yeah, tell them a little bit about that.
Oh, that's where all my grand people came from. They were Prussian. They were escaping in, I guess, World War One. The Germans. And they settled in different places, but my grandfather, great grandparents settled in Colquitt, Georgia, of all places, and so I have a lot of history there, a lot of aunts and uncles, and everybody's in right now in the Colquitt City Cemetery, including my mother, my grandmother, all my grandmother's children. So I go there as often as I can, just to be with them. You know, walk around the cemetery and read the names and be with them.
And since we mentioned Colquitt in the book, you can see the Colquitt Cemetery marker and a photograph of Nola. And I'm going to ask her to read this poem adjacent.
In Search of My Ancestors.
Yes.
Okay, I wrote that driving from Atlanta to Colquitt. It's called In Search of My Ancestors. Behind me, my spiritual city, which rose like a phoenix from the ashes of war, bids me Godspeed and safe return. I absolve from trespass the impatient morning as those to whom I travel past Megs, Camilla, Quiggum, Omega, Osmac, Adipolga, Climax, and Bainbridge will doubtless wait. I find you, Ada, beneath your rock, born 1897, Audrey, Minnie Lee, Reuben, Ranny, and William Richard Dancer, January 12th, 1849 to December 1st, 1901. There is a Civil War cross at your feet. Your wife a smaller grave beside you, both of you forever encircled by rusted metal fence and swinging gate, surely as keep the hounds of heaven out the angels in. Against the August heat, the only sounds in Georgia's summer noon, the measured code of sprinklers, you are not missed, you are not missed. The passing cars and rustle of a breeze, I lay my questions and unsolved mysteries beside silent stones. Where are my answers, you bare, austere, and windswept earth of Miller County? Where are my answers, O semaphore sun?
Thank you. Now there is one. Oh, I can't very well do a poetry song and not a show and not read at least one poem. Can I read one?
I hope you're going to read all those you marked, but this is going to take us to tomorrow at the same time.
Yeah, did we tell you this is a 6-hour segment? Oh, we left that out, Connor. Um, this one has always been one of my favorites. 626 Planter Street. Dosha, they have changed your house. The wide, spacious screen porch where you fanned yourself in summer is bricked in now. I would like to tell you about it. I looked for you on the neighborhood streets. You were not in any of the houses. Dosha, the figs are ready. Your harvest of paper shells gathers beneath the pecan tree, waiting for the shoebox and the mailing in brown paper. They came to me with your fat handwriting. I cracked them in my teeth, and I read your letter. Dosha, the town square is less amiable now than we shopped. Bumming around, you always said. You, with your black umbrella against the summer sun, your eyes in that familiar squint. Dosha, I longed to find you, stepping out on the sidewalk there, stepping into my last image of you, beckoning me, smiling, sheltering me under your black umbrella.
She was an Avon lady, and she in the neighborhood on 6th Street in Fernandina, and she would go out, never go out without her black umbrella to shield her her still pristine skin.
We can talk of a southern grande dame, can we not?
Yes, we can. She was one.
Is there something that you specifically would like to read, Noah?
Um,
And while she's looking, let me tell you a little sidebar story. Years ago in Atlanta, Nola did a production of Fernandina and Other Voices. And shortly after we met, I was just entranced by the story. And it was, there were poems about Fernandina, memories of Amelia Island, and we decided to do it again as a stage production here in Fernandina. And we were very fortunate because a number of people came to our assistance in that. Kate Hart in doing the Fernandina Little Theater, making that available to us. We had a wonderful tenor sax performer, and he did music from when the people came into the theater and sat down, and worked as bridges between between each of the poems. And Nola has a collection of family photographs. If a poem was about a place or a person, that photograph was on the center of the stage. And Steve Limeberg did a collection in the beginning of wonderful scenes. And here he was fairly new to the island at that point. Were just things that he noted that were significant on the island, and thereby referenced kind of in the poems that Nola had written. But we did pretty much what was done before in the first act, and then I never have been able to keep my hands off things. Nola and I took our Vorpal blade and went snicker snack. Do you remember the Jabberwock? That's the poem that we read together months and months ago. And anyway, we reshaped it because in addition to the poetry books, Nola has written a lot of journals, and we use those journals in the second act as transitions into the poetry. So that second act was something that she and I together worked on very, very carefully, and brought that to life on the stage. And
yeah, and it sold out for one one weekend, and then it sold out for the next weekend, and people were waiting for trying to get tickets.
And folks, poetry sold out in Fernandina? Come on, it's not a musical.
It's your genius.
No, it's your genius.
It was your set
Oh,
and all of the genius stage things that you know how to do that enhanced it so.
well, we had a glorious time.
We did.
What poem would you like to read?
Well, I was speaking of Vincent Ferreira, and I have a couple of poems here. He was a very handsome fella. Can you see that picture of him?
There he is, quite dapper, I'd say.
And I loved him. Uh, remembering Vincent, trains know the names you are wanting to hear. The water gets the words flowing, that's why I sit beside the lake on a hard metal bench, propped against and under the sheltering arms of a great oak. Here in the cooling hour, late afternoon, with the blessing of wind and water, the report card of a distant train, sounding its passing serendipity, bringing the memory of a man you loved. No, not a lover, nothing like that. A brother-in-law dying in his bedroom, where when you entered, laying your body on the bed beside him, you said in jest, Benny, don't tell anybody I got in bed with you. And he, dead serious, replied, I won't. He was a train man, a conductor, the one who took my young sons one at a time on overnight trips with him. One son I named for him a mighty arrangement of 7 beautiful letters of our common language, Vincent, Vincent. The lake, so still betimes, is quickening now, hastening toward shore, toward the green gold pads, their pristine, unapologetically white water lilies lining the shoreline like an heirloom necklace. We are sharply attentive now as the wind gives water an elocution lesson, a eulogy for the ending day, each ripple a sentence of the story, a watery braille that if only you knew the code could tell you what the lake knows, its revelation of what hides under currency. So it's enough for us to know how time is transiting even as the train sounds. I've always been in love with trains, and Edna St. Vincent Millay said, and this is at the bottom of the poem, my heart is warm with the friends I make, and better friends I'll not be knowing, yet there isn't a train I wouldn't take, no matter where it's going.
And there is nothing to beat that distant sound of longing and anticipation. Anytime you hear a train whistle, you just sort of part of your soul wants to go there with it, wherever that is.
This is true. You didn't tell me you were a train freak too.
Oh, I am, definitely. Every house I've lived in for the last 30 years has been within the sound of a train. And I've always made sure of that simply because it just makes my heart beat faster.
I want to just read that final poem about Vincent. And he's buried at Poscobello with his wife, my sister-in-law, Andre's sister. And it's called when it's short. When Vinny died. At the hour of death, that final breath was like a gust of a mighty wind. It was full of sparkles like champagne. The bubbles released all demons and sorrow the body harbored in life. Then a quiet, a still, as if freed at last, peace. And Benny fell back with arms outstretched that failed to reach his waiting wife. So I was there the night he died.
As you can see, folks, this book really does touch on very personal, poignant moments, and the fact that you can know the poet, the fact that you can see photographs of the people who are involved, the fact that Edna St. Vincent Millay has come to this particular feast of words. There are other people who are quoted, and I could literally spend hours reading you and with Noah these poems in here because they do tell an intriguing story, and you will see a vision of a life well lived. Now, the next question. You've tantalized me with the poet. You've tantalized me with the book. Okay, how do I get it? Well, let me answer that question. Connor has given me all of the information that I need. The telephone number is area code 904 601 2118. The staff will help you. If you would like to have an autographed copy, they can be sure you have one. If you have a message you want on that autographed copy, you can get it to Nola and she can consign on that appropriately. And I'm going to read you the address on the internet here, which is another pathway you have to story and song. It's info, symbol at, and all of this is lowercase, story, STORY, and AND, song, SONG, bookstore, BOOKSTORE, no spaces in between, .com, COM. That's another way you can reach us. And by the way, we do take caution with your health and ours. Where the store is open, we do ask for masks. I've got mine.
Purple, of course.
Did you think it was going to be pink?
No.
Okay, just checking. We do ask that you wear a mask inside, but supposing you're out here, you're in a rush, if you call in advance, they'll be very happy to do curbside service to bring it right out to you, to your car. Also, depending on where you are on the island, sometimes island delivery can be arranged. But you can finalize all that with your telephone call or your digital contact, however you do that. And now I think we really must come to a conclusion, because as usual, my version of a half hour is 40 minutes. I can't count, so what? Folks, come and visit with us on Friday, where I'm going to be reading to you from H is for Hawk by Helen Macdonald, and a very special side view of the Goshawk by T.H. White. Thank you for sharing this afternoon with us. See you on Friday. Oh, and Noah, thank you very much.
Oh, it was a privilege and a joy.
We'll do this again next end of last book.
Next last book.
Yeah.
All right.